Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something, well, a deeply forbidden text. Think of it as a grim cautionary fable about power, survival, and the absolutely lethal dangers of unchecked vanity. We're diving into a historical record known as the Sun's Tirade. It's this chilling account of a courtier who basically had to wear a metaphorical iron mask just to survive the reign of a deeply insecure king. If you've ever had to navigate a toxic environment, one dominated by massive egos, this historical strategy is going to completely change how you view power dynamics. Listen closely to this central premise. Overt brilliance is a tactical error that invites literal execution. We're skipping the standard introductions today because we really need to grasp the lethal stakes here right away. In the historical courts we're looking at, navigating a king's vanity wasn't about trying to get a promotion. No, it was about keeping your head firmly attached to your neck. Shining too brightly wasn't just a minor faux pas, it was a literal death sentence. Okay, let's dive right into this dark history with Section 1, The Danger of Radiance. To really understand this, we've got to look at the treacherous court environment witnessed by a figure named Master Alaric. He lived in this high-stakes, absolutely ruthless kingdom where the monarch's ego was, well, exceptionally fragile. Take Alaric's first apprentice as a case study in failed survival. Now, this kid possessed raw genius, overt brilliance. He was undeniably talented. But in a court entirely dictated by royal insecurity, that raw genius tragically outshone the established elders. And the inevitable result? The executioner's axe. He perished simply because he didn't know how to hide his own light. So, after witnessing this horrific fate, Master Alaric took on a second apprentice. But this time around, they both knew that raw talent was a fatal liability. Surviving the blinding, deadly light of a king's insecurity, which, by the way, is the core theme of the Sun's Tirade, required a radical, desperate, and honestly pretty dark survival strategy. This second apprentice had to completely reinvent what it actually meant to exist in the presence of power. Which brings us to Section 2, Forge of the Hollowed Soul. To avoid his predecessor's bloody fate, the second apprentice willingly put himself through a harrowing psychological crucible known as the Forge of the Hollowed Soul. He couldn't just fake being humble, right? He had to fundamentally alter his own psychology. This method was explicitly designed to strip away all personal pride. The apprentice had to completely erase that basic human, desperate need to be known, to be recognized, or praised. By shedding his humanity, he transformed into a vessel of pure utility. He literally became a void wrapped in silk, designed for one single purpose, to perfectly mirror his master's desires. Let's look at how he did this in Section 3, the Moon Archetype Strategy. Once his soul was hollowed out, the apprentice adopted a specific, incredibly high-stakes behavioral framework to navigate the kingdom's hierarchy. This psychological survival tactic basically came down to 3 actionable historical steps to manage the fragile narcissism of the crown. Step 1, shedding humanity and personal ego. Step 2, wearing a thick veil of flattery and subservience at all times. And finally, Step 3, and this is the absolute most crucial part, strictly reflecting the king's image back at him, rather than projecting any of your own. The essence of this strategy is captured perfectly right here. He possessed no light of his own, but commanded the tides of court politics by reflecting the king's image. Think of it like a perfect mirror analogy here. A mirror possesses absolutely no light of its own, right? But if you angle it just right, it perfectly reflects the blinding sun. In a really dangerous court, acting as a flawless mirror is your ultimate protective shield. You reflect the king's brilliance so perfectly that he only ever sees himself when he looks at you. Now, what's really interesting here is this concept of strategic humility. By ensuring the monarch always felt like the sole, undisputed source of brilliance in the room, the apprentice stayed alive. He managed the crown's fragile narcissism so incredibly carefully that he completely avoided becoming a lightning rod for royal insecurity. This calculated humility, it acted as a shield that kept him totally clean and composed in the comforting darkness. And that leads us to Section 4, Rise of the King's Shadow. And this brilliantly illustrates how the historical fable takes a massive turn. It doesn't end with mere survival. The prey was actually about to become the predator. Over time, the courtier stopped merely avoiding harm. Instead, he began quietly manipulating the shadows cast by the leader's intense radiance. From the safety of the darkness, he actually guided major kingdom outcomes. He let the king claim absolutely all the public glory, which of course kept the king utterly pacified. By remaining completely undetected, the courtier undermined the sun from within its own blinding light. He effectively weaponized his forced submissiveness to control the entire realm.
This all culminates in Section 5, the fall of unchecked vanity.
Because as we know, a kingdom cannot run on vanity alone. Eventually, the structural integrity of the crown began to buckle under the massive weight of its own ego. Ultimately, the exhausted king was entirely ruined by the heavy weight of his own unchecked vanity. Absolute ruin came for the monarch. And what did our master strategist do during this epic collapse? Well, he simply waited in the darkness. He stayed completely untouched by the chaos, patiently watching while the monarch destroyed himself. The aftermath is where the true, terrifying power of this strategy is finally revealed. Only after the ruler fell did the strategist emerge from the darkness, now taking full control as the pristine authority. Because he had mastered self-erasure, the courtier had essentially become a ghost in his own skin, who now commanded the world. He proved once and for all that overt brilliance is a trap. He successfully navigated the storm without getting wet, quite simply by letting others burn in their own sins. So, the most crucial takeaway from this dark historical fable is the undeniable danger of ego. Power isn't always about who stands the tallest in the spotlight. More often than not, it's about who casts the longest shadow. I'll leave you with this chilling question to ponder about your own life and the power dynamics you deal with every day. Are you blinded by your own radiance, or are you the shadow manipulating the light?